Welcome back to my podcast on the future of business and technology. I'm Bernard Ma. In this episode, we will explore the evolving role of the CFO in cybersecurity, from understanding AI driven risks and resilience to building strong partnerships with CISOs and CEOs and making smart security investments that protect both innovation and the bottom line. To help me untangle this topic today, I'm joined by Michael Wignall, who is the UK Security Solutions Leader at Microsoft, and Soriya Shariff, UK Senior Security GTM Lead at Microsoft. Welcome, both of you.
Fantastic. Thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you so much, Bernard. Great to be here.
Yeah, no, it's so lovely to have you with us. So let's get straight into the questions. What misconceptions do CFOs still have about cybersecurity in the age of AI?
So I'll pitch in first here. So I spent 20 years of my career in finance, and I've seen firsthand how many times I think CFOs still think of cybersecurity as somewhat of an IT issue, and I think sometimes CISOs aren't brought into the conversation in the C-suite. And the thing is, I think in the age of AI, I think especially all these cyber attacks that we're seeing come left, right, and center, we see how much it affects businesses. It's impacting their revenue. It's impacting, huge like revenue loss and reputational loss. Think about the time and effort that is going on where the whole business is kind of redirected to a cyber attack. And when we think about the P&L impact from a cyber attack like that, it's absolutely more important than ever that CFOs need to become more aware of cybersecurity. It's not a technical issue. It's completely a business resilience, business continuity. That's the conversation that we should be having. And just how we treat every other cost that might hit the P&L. I think this is another one that CFOs have to also consider and really prioritize as well.
Very good. Michael?
I agree completely. I spend every day with CISOs and techies talking about cybersecurity technology. But the biggest challenge I think that they have when I speak to them is that the CFO or the board as a whole needs to recognize it's not just on them. It isn't just a technology issue. It's not about tools itself. It's about organizational culture and thinking about security as a holistic risk. I 100% agree with Soriya around like the P&L impact. You can just open the news at the moment and see about large organizations that have production lines stopped or personal data leaked or other impacts that are business risks. These impact the profitability of a business as a whole. They impact the sustainability of businesses. And so all of that is the case before you even bring AI. In the era of AI, it's not like that has been the case in the cybersecurity space for a while now. And just the advent of some of the AI techniques and the increasing in threat landscape means that attacks are getting quicker. They're increasing in speed and scale and sophistication. And that should be a topic for every CFO and every board to consider.
I think sometimes CFOs, I think when it comes to like budgetary times, for example, when you think about investment in cybersecurity, and we see this, Michael, when we're looking at all our accounts and customers, that budget seems to come up as a lot of times, a lot of the reasons why they won't invest. But actually, I think investing in cybersecurity is investing for the kind of future resilience of your company. It might be an increase in cost in your investment, but we need to think about, surely that's better investing first rather than having an attack and all the costs that you're going to associate getting a cyber response unit in, dealing with the revenue loss after that. I think being at the forefront, being dynamic, flexible with your approach to budgeting cybersecurity costs will actually enable future growth. I think cybersecurity is often seen as a blocker, but actually it's an enabler. And once you feel secure and once you feel that you've invested enough in really securing your AI capabilities, or whatever, your whole company capabilities, then the opportunity is endless. And actually, that leads to more trust leads to confidence, and that leads to more growth, which I'm pretty sure every CFO would be happy to achieve.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. For me, security literally is a non-negotiable in today's world. And when we bring AI into this world, we have had generative AI that gives us more sophisticated attacks. But now with agentic AI in particular, I think the whole automation of hacking and finding vulnerabilities and finding vulnerable data is so difficult and so tricky for organizations to, if they don't take this very seriously, they leave themselves completely vulnerable. And I think you made the point why CFOs should care about cybersecurity. But what would you say defines this optimal relationship between CISOs, CFOs, and CEOs?
I'll jump in first there. I think it's about partnership, right?
Mm.
It is about a joint understanding of the problem, understanding the risk and the risk appetite of the organization, and then being joined up in what the solution is, and that it is not just technology. It isn't just people and process, it's the culture of the organization as well. And the best partnerships I've seen are when that conversation, like when they're sitting around a board table, they don't just defer every security conversation to the CISO. If the CISO is even at the boards, like sometimes it isn't, and sometimes it's the CIO, that absolutely should be a board level discussion. And when everyone around that table understands what the reputational risk, the business continuity risk, the overall risk is for that. And so the best partnership is, the best engagements I've seen is when it's a partnership. It's also when like you are holding each other account, but in the CISO world, like you don't generally get plaudits for when nothing happens, and then when something bad happens, then often you find you're out of a job. And so it is about like the good and the bad, knowing when to pick up the phone call, but also to recognize that when nothing happens, the security organization is probably doing a really good job.
100%. I think it's totally about that partnership that Michael's talked about. And I think it's also about knowledge and upskilling yourselves. I think the CFOs and everyone on the board, they don't need to be technical experts, but I think you need to know enough about cybersecurity in order to have a really good educated conversation with your CISO, and so that you can get that confidence, that we are secure enough, we have invested enough in this. Because if you leave all that knowledge to one person, then you're leaving yourself completely vulnerable, and you're not going to be able to move forward. I think absolutely, this whole technological huge shift that we're going through at the moment, the CEO, CFO, and CISO, that partnership needs to be so strong, and a shared accountability across the board on that.
Yeah, and for me, it goes just a complete board engagement. I think the chief people officer has to be part of that relationship too, because you mentioned culture, which is so important. And for me, actually developing this culture of vigilance and developing the cybersecurity skills and awareness in people is so important. So it's really a complete board level partnership that needs to happen across all parts of the organization.
Agreed. And on the people side in particular, if you look at some of the recent attacks that have happened, the root in came from social engineering and people. It didn't come from a 0-day exploit in a particular product that a very savvy hacker managed to get into. It came from password reset policies. It came from people in the help desk giving out information they probably shouldn't to English-speaking social engineering attacks. And so that culture and making sure that it is top down but also embedded everywhere is one of the key things. And Chief People also has to drive that, but then all of the other stakeholders around that table should too.
I think CFOs actually are quite a vulnerable position in some ways, because a lot of the times they are the final signatory on payments or the final signatory on purchase orders and things like that. And as cyber hacking becomes more, more sophisticated, CFOs themselves can be complete victims to an attack. Someone, deep faking, all that, stuff where they can pretend to be someone asking for authorization. So CFOs, if they can, have that education, and there's that culture piece that it's actually everyone's responsibility to be educated on this cybersecurity, know the signs, know the risks. Then I think definitely that creates a better environment as we go forward in this new age that we are going into.
Yeah, I very much agree. So what sort of resources are available for CFOs looking to learn more about business resilience and cybersecurity?
So there's a couple of things from my perspective that I would be recommendations to any CFO or board in general. Is there's a set of board toolkits that have been published by the NCSC, or the National Cybersecurity Centre, that really goes into great clarity about like the steps that need to be done. And this is not a technology related view. It's certainly not a Microsoft view. This is what you should be doing to think about the processes that you would follow. And it covers some of the things we talked about, people and culture. It covers like how you create the right environment, or like what do you need to do to ensure the organization end to end thinks about cybersecurity. It then talks about like getting the right information to support decision making, knowing about what assets you've got and what risks you have, and what your environment's like. And then it talks, what do you do about it? Like what have you done at this level if something happens? And there's things within that, and this is where partners like Microsoft can play, but there's other organizations that do similar things where we recommend wargaming some of this stuff, doing tabletop exercises. What happens if something, you're ending up on the front page of the BBC? Like, what is your process to get goods to your factories or to the stores, or to take payments from customers? What happens if your comms goes down? What happens if you can't get access to it? Do you know who to pick up the phone to? Like these things, like it's worthwhile practicing. And so my default at a board level, I absolutely think there's capability that the National Cybersecurity Centre provides, and then Microsoft provides a bunch of other capability too. Maybe Soriya, you've got some inputs on that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another element which is really good, which I've recently read as well, is the Microsoft Digital Defense Report. Yes, specifically the last year that was published, and I know a new one is due to come out soon. But I think it is quite a heavy document. But Chapter 3, I absolutely think should be a prerequisite for every board to read. I think it gives a really, really good global view of the threats that we are now experiencing, and practical steps that you can take to build your resilience. I think also, having those questions at the forefront that you are willing to open up to the board, and, have these questions that you regularly think about. To Michael's point, do we have a business continuity plan if we are hit? Have we enabled our security teams to identify and then respond to an attack? And that enablement comes from investment. Have we made the right investment choices? AI is an amazing tool that is going to unlock a whole amazing array of future opportunities that we can't even fathom as yet. But also, it is a threat, and we need to make sure we deal with it in the right way, and deal with it as we should. And also, are we empowering the CISOs? I think Michael suggested, also kind of mentioned that sometimes CISOs aren't even on the board. I think we really need to empower them more, and make them part of the conversation, and the regular conversation. It shouldn't just be, okay, we've had that conversation, now let's move on.
Yeah, they're all really valuable resources and really good tips as well.
If I may, there's one more that I'll add to the list.
Yeah.
As a reflection from a Microsoft perspective is, we've gone through some learnings ourselves on, like, we are one of the most attacked organizations in the world. We've got lots of nation states trying to get into our systems and get our secrets and our customers' secrets. And there's a program that we've run internally called the Secure Future Initiative, SFI, which again is top down. Our chief exec, Satya Nadella, sponsored this. It is flowing from him all the way down to every single employee in the organization that has a core priority to focus on security. And it lists a couple of principles as an organization around security is the number one priority, and that we want to be secure by default, secure by design, and then with secure operations. And so like on a company of our size with hundreds of thousands of employees and like millions of endpoints and lots of complexity, we've gone through that journey and then documented it, and then we release a report on a quarterly basis on like what our learnings are, and it's in the public domain and is a good resource for others to learn how we've gone through that journey ourselves and think about what they can do on their side.
Yeah, very good point. I'd like to pick up on what you just said, this whole security by design and by default. Maybe you can give us an overview of why investments in that and how investments and benefits of having security by design and default in place. What is going to be the impact on a company's P&L, for example?
Maybe I'll start. Sorry, Soriya.
Go, Michael, you start.
Let me start from an engineering perspective. I'm an engineer in heart, and then roll it up, which is one, like unless you build it in at the start, you build it in by design, you build in security at first approach, and increasingly, unless you turn those features on by default, security by default, and you make sure that those capabilities are not an opt-in, they're an opt-out. You open yourself up to threats and breaches that then could cause a compromise in your organization and cost a lot of money. And so from an engineering perspective, it makes sense to engineer that stuff at the base at the start, and then protect yourself from, in the long term, from having that in place. The P&L trade-off is a little harder because it costs you more upfront to do that stuff, but the long-term return, though it's harder to quantify what the ROI is of a negative, of something not happening, is absolutely there. Sorry, I cut you off earlier.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You basically said along the same lines. I think CFOs are sometimes a bit hesitant because obviously they're very cost conscious. They all have a profit target to hit, and how are they meant to shuffle around the P&L to make sure that the books balance at the end of the day. So investing in secure by design, and that really means investing right at the start in the origins of everything that you're doing to make sure that security is at that forefront. It is going to be a cost. But if you think about, wouldn't you rather invest it now than have to deal with a breach later on, have to explain to shareholders, have to have a momentary where you are unable to trade, unable to function as a company? I think just in the same way that we think about liquidity risk and things like that, I think it's the same sort of mindset that we need to shift to. It is, and Bernard, you mentioned it at the beginning, it is a non-negotiable. And I think that's what we need to lean into a bit more. It is a non-negotiable cost on the P&L, and it has to be. Otherwise, frankly, it's not if, it's when are you going to get targeted? So I think that's where CFOs need to get their head around a bit. And obviously, if you're planning these costs, a lot of these costs can be, more of a capex cost, less of a, dealing with it reactionary, like in the moment, so it will hit your P&L harder. So I think if these are an investment, it can obviously hit the P&L slightly differently, which can help CFOs.
Yeah, and how can we make sure IT departments are getting enough budget in the P&L to ensure that we're investing not only in AI, but secure AI?
Well, I think the first thing to say in this context is if you look at the threat landscape and the increasing sophistication and scale and speed of the threats that AI is driving, thinking that you can just run at baseline or shrink is not adapting to the increasing threat. Like the attackers are outpacing the defenders. They are using this technology today. They're working at machine speed. And so I know there might be a drive to cut costs and consolidate and reduce budgets, but even if you're keeping them at the status quo, you're not keeping pace with the number of threats. And I think it's evident to seeing the number of incidents in the market right now that, you know, the attackers are winning the battle, right? Like they're investing and they're getting returns on it, and we should see the appropriate returns. We should see the appropriate investments from not just an IT perspective, but all the other things we talk about, people and culture, and how you drive that. How you get to a number, like, it does depend on the risk appetite of the organization and the threat landscape that they're in and what the attack types are. But I would come back to what is the impact of an incident. Like, what is the downturn if you have to stop production? What is the downturn if you can't take payments? What is the downturn, or the PR risk if you lose a bunch of your data? And you know, where that cost comes on, thinking about the you know, the investment to reduce the risk of that. And then the flip of it is, I know we've been a little bit doom and gloom in the cyber space talking about the negatives. On the positives, on the adoption of AI, you know, there is benefit in investing in the right place to adopt some of these capabilities to help, like, leapfrog your capability. We know there's not enough cybersecurity skills in the market right now. There's not enough people to do this, but some of these AI tools can help scale out your security operations center, for instance, or scale out some of your capabilities that you wouldn't be able to do by, you know, hiring more people and doing it. So being pro AI and adopting that capability internally as well, thinking about your cost model differently and approaching it is another good way to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think education is a huge piece, ensuring that ensuring that, you know, IT teams are getting enough investment for the cybersecurity, but that really is on, you know, the C-suite to upskill themselves. And, you know, I said it at the beginning, they don't need to be technical experts, but you need to have a deeper knowledge of cybersecurity. I think everybody does, to be honest, in society, let alone on boards. I think we are all, you know, can be victims of it. But I think, you know, if you are fighting for budget with your CFO, but they understand where you're coming from, that is a whole different conversation to if you are just having a conversation with the CFO who literally just sees your budgetary line as an IT cost, and that's it. I think if they know the lines that go beneath that IT cost, and to Michael's point, I think if they are investing in AI, you are only going to get so far with AI if you do not invest in cybersecurity. It will stop you at some point. So if you really want to unleash, you know, everything that AI has to offer, you do have to invest. But I think, you know, I think the books will balance at the end of the day, because you will get an amazing amount of growth with the possibilities that AI can offer. But as long as you do it securely and with thinking behind it, I think there's, you know, a lot of opportunity ahead.
And to that point, one model I've seen work well and would be a recommendation, particularly when you're looking to innovate with AI or organizations looking to do innovative things, is don't silo this in an IT budget. Like, if you're doing a project base, we want to see how AI can transform our customer service operations or whatever it happens to be. Build into whatever business case that you're building for that an element of data security and compliance and threat. Like, build that in, because otherwise, if you build the whole, you know, new solution and then you okay, now we need to secure it, you go back to the IT teams and they say, oh, can you come here now? And then you have to go back again and ask for additional funding. So yes, IT should core platform, core identity, core security operations center. Yes, absolutely, those budgets need to be protected and I would believe grown. But if you're driving into new business areas, make sure you build a cyber contingency into that as well from whatever you know, modeling you're doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Soriya and Michael. That was super interesting and very helpful and very practical pieces of advice here. And I think when it comes to budget, just speak to any organization that has been hacked. And I guess if they could go back and double the budget, they would be so happy to do this and not cope with all the threats and all the implications that came afterwards. So super helpful. Thank you very much. For anyone who ever wants to rewatch this, you can simply watch this on my YouTube channel, where you can find this conversation and hundreds of others like it, or you can find this on any podcast platform as well. So thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you.